All right, ready for today's deep dive. We're going deep into medical malpractice, especially here in Colorado. We'll try to give you a solid understanding of how it all works using some pretty shocking statistics and some insights from the Martin Law Firm.
It's interesting, a lot of people only think about medical malpractice when they see those big headlines, but this is something that affects way more people than you'd think.
That's true. Imagine this. You have some unexpected health complication after a procedure. How would you even know if it was just bad luck or if someone was negligent? What are your rights, even? In Colorado, that's what we're looking at today.
That's a big question because the numbers are kind of scary. Did you know medical errors are the third leading cause of death in the U.S.? That's from a Johns Hopkins study.
Wait, the third leading cause? That's crazy. I feel like everyone has had that feeling like something was off with their medical care, but they don't know what to do.
Oh, yeah, and that uncertainty can be tough. The law around medical malpractice is complicated, especially in Colorado. It's one of the few states that has caps on both the total and the non-economic damages you can get in these cases.
Okay, so let's break that down for our listeners. What do those damage caps actually mean in plain English?
Imagine there's a limit on the amount of money you can get if you win a medical malpractice lawsuit.
Like a ceiling?
Yeah, exactly. In Colorado, that ceiling is $1 million.
Wow, so even if a jury says your case is worth more, you're stuck with that.
Exactly. And it gets even trickier with non-economic damages, things like pain and suffering, emotional distress. Those are capped even lower at $300,000.
Wow, that's kind of discouraging. Makes you realize how important it is to have a good lawyer if you're going through this in Colorado.
Definitely, a good lawyer can be a huge help. They can help you understand the law, get the evidence you need, and make a strong case to get you what you deserve.
So let's step away from the numbers and laws for a second. From what you've seen, what are the most common types of medical malpractice here in Colorado?
Besides those really bad cases you see in the news, the most common ones are misdiagnosis or delayed diagnosis. That's where a doctor doesn't figure out what's wrong with you and it leads to the wrong treatment or things just get worse.
I can see how that would be a huge problem, especially if they miss something that could be treated.
Yeah, exactly. And we see a lot of surgical errors, medication errors, and problems with births, too. These are often pretty complex cases, and it takes a lot of work to figure out if someone was actually negligent.
Those high-stakes cases make me think of a case outside of Colorado that was all over the news. This guy, Alan Navarro, in Florida, won something like $216.7 million because doctors misdiagnosed his stroke symptoms.
Yeah, that case really shows how important it is to have good doctors who can figure out what's wrong and treat people right. It also shows how much medical negligence can really mess up people's lives. And that's where a firm like the Martin Law Firm comes in. They're really committed to fighting for people who have been hurt by medical malpractice.
Speaking of Martin Law Firm, they seem to do more than just the paperwork. They really dig deep into these cases.
Oh, for sure. They're really thorough. They go beyond just reading the medical records. They do full investigations, talk to medical experts, and put together these whole cases to figure out what really happened.
So it's not just about what's on the surface. They really try to get the whole story.
Exactly. And what I really like about the Martin Law Firm is how they treat their clients. They really get that these medical malpractice cases aren't just legal things. They involve real people who are going through a lot.
So they're not just seeing a case file. They're seeing a person whose life has been turned upside down.
That's right. And that really makes a difference when you're dealing with something as sensitive as medical malpractice. They understand that it's not just about getting money. It's about getting justice and some peace of mind.
So they're not just fighting for you in the courtroom. They're fighting for you as a person.
Exactly. Now let's switch gears a little and give our listeners some real advice on what to do if they think they might be a victim of medical negligence. There's this video called Understanding the Medical Malpractice Claim Process that has some really good info.
Yeah, let's get practical here. What can our listeners actually do right now?
The biggest thing is to be proactive. If anything bad happens, talk to your doctor, document everything, and keep good records. Early action is super important.
So it's not just about remembering, it's about actually making a record of everything.
Exactly. Good records give you a timeline and can help prove that what the doctor did or didn't do actually caused your injuries. On top of that, it's also important to be proactive about getting information.
Like what kind of information?
If you're not sure about something, don't be afraid to ask your doctor for more details. You can even get a second opinion from another doctor. Remember, the more you know, the better you can stand up for yourself.
Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to your health.
Exactly. And don't forget about talking to your doctor. Be clear about your concerns and make sure you really understand the risks and benefits of any treatment or procedure.
So don't be afraid to speak up and ask questions. You have a right to be involved in your own healthcare.
Absolutely. And if you think something went wrong and it might be medical negligence, don't wait to talk to a lawyer. The sooner you do, the better they can protect you and help you with all the legal stuff.
It sounds like being proactive is the key here. Whether it's gathering information, talking to your doctor, or finding a lawyer, those early steps can make all the difference in a potential malpractice case.
You got it. Being proactive gives people control over their own situation and lets them make smart decisions. Now let's talk more about the Martin Law Firm. What makes them so special in this area? We know they're experts and they care about their clients, but what else is there?
Yeah, what makes them stand out?
One thing that's really cool is how committed they are to finding the truth. They don't just take things at face value. They dig deeper, investigate everything, and make sure they understand the whole picture.
So they're like medical detectives trying to piece together what really happened.
That's a great way to put it. And they work with all these medical experts who can help them analyze things and even testify in court if they need to.
So it's not just lawyers working alone. They're teaming up with top doctors to make sure they understand the medical side of things completely.
Exactly. And that teamwork lets them build a strong case that proves how the doctor messed up and how that led to your injuries.
Makes sense. But aside from all the legal stuff, I've also heard they're really good at explaining things to their clients.
Oh yeah, definitely. They go out of their way to break down all the complicated legal stuff so it's easy to understand. They want their clients to feel in control and know what's going on.
So it's not just about winning the case. It's about making sure their clients understand everything and feel supported.
Exactly. That feeling of being in control can be really important when you're going through something as tough as a medical malpractice lawsuit. It can be really draining emotionally and mentally. You know, we've been talking about individual cases, but what about those bigger issues that lead to medical errors in the first place?
That's a good point. It's not just about isolated incidents. There are bigger trends and factors at play.
And what's interesting is that medical errors are rarely just one person's fault. Usually it's because of problems within the healthcare system itself.
So it's not about blaming individual doctors or nurses. It's about recognizing all the things that can lead to these mistakes.
Exactly. Think about it, things like miscommunication, not enough staff doctors being burned out, even how medical equipment is designed. All of these things can lead to errors.
It sounds like fixing this problem requires a much bigger change than just holding individual healthcare workers accountable.
You're right. We need big changes to make healthcare safer and reduce these errors. That means putting strong safety rules in place, creating a culture where people are open and honest, and investing in education and training for healthcare workers.
So it's about building a system that puts patient safety first and helps doctors and nurses give the best possible care.
That's the goal. Legal action can get justice for those who have been harmed, but it's equally important to prevent these mistakes from happening at all.
That's powerful. It's about holding people accountable, but also working together to make healthcare safer for everyone. Before we move on, I want to go back to something you said earlier about medical malpractice maybe not being reported enough.
Yes, that's really important. The numbers we see probably don't show the whole picture of how often medical malpractice happens.
Why do you think people might not report medical errors or sue?
There are a few reasons. Some people might not even know they have rights, or they might be scared to go up against a doctor. Others might worry about getting in trouble, or they just feel overwhelmed by the whole legal process.
I can see why people might hesitate in a situation like that. It's sensitive and can seem really scary.
Absolutely. And sometimes the harm from medical negligence doesn't show up right away, so it's even harder to figure out what happened and realize you might need a lawyer.
So there's a lot of gray area, which makes things even more complicated.
Exactly. And unfortunately, that means some cases don't get reported, so we don't really know how big the problem is, and we can't find good solutions.
It seems like we need to raise awareness about medical malpractice and help people recognize and report these errors if we're going to fix this.
I completely agree. We need to talk about these things more. The more we talk, the less stigma there will be around medical malpractice, and people will feel more comfortable coming forward and getting what they deserve.
Open conversations and more awareness are key to making healthcare safer and holding people accountable. Now, in our last part, we'll talk about the emotional impact of medical malpractice and give our listeners some empowering takeaways. You know, we've been talking about the legal side and all the stats, but we can't forget about the human side of all this. Medical malpractice isn't just physical. It can really mess you up emotionally, too.
Yeah, that's so true. We tend to focus on like the physical injuries, But the emotional stuff can be just as bad.
It's like this hidden weight you have to carry.
Like losing trust in doctors, being scared of going back to the hospital, the guilt, the anger, all those emotions are real and can really affect you.
It reminds you that medical malpractice isn't just about numbers and laws. It's about real people going through something really tough.
And that's where having a lawyer who really cares can make all the difference. A firm like Martin Law Firm doesn't just handle the legal stuff. They really get how their clients are feeling.
It's more than just getting money. It's about getting support and feeling like someone understands.
Right. They know that real justice isn't just about the money. It's about feeling validated and understood and being able to move on.
It sounds like they're there for their clients every step of the way, helping them heal and get back on their feet.
Exactly. That's what makes them so special. Okay, as we wrap up this deep dive into medical malpractice, let's give our listeners some key takeaways. What are the most important things to remember?
If our listeners are only going to remember a few things from today, what should they be?
The most important thing is you have rights as a patient. You have the right to know what's going on, to ask questions, to get a second opinion, and to speak up for yourself. Don't be afraid to say something if you're worried about your care.
It's like you always say, you got to be your own advocate, especially when it comes to healthcare.
Exactly. And if you think you've been a victim of medical malpractice, you're not alone. There are people who can help you, including lawyers who specialize in these cases.
Like the Martin Law Firm. They're a great example of a firm that knows what they're doing and really cares about their clients.
Exactly. Remember, the sooner you get help, the better.
This deep dive has been really eye-opening. We've talked about everything from the shocking statistics to the legal details and the emotional toll of medical malpractice.
But most importantly, I hope we've given our listeners some knowledge, some practical tips, and some hope. Remember, you have the right to safe and quality medical care.
And if you're in Colorado and you think you might have a medical malpractice case, call the Martin Law Firm for a free consultation. They'll be there to listen to you, help you understand your options, and fight for your rights.
And even if you're not in Colorado, the same ideas apply. Be informed, know your rights, and be proactive when it comes to your health.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of medical malpractice. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay well.